Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. So I apologize in advance for all the talking coming directly from me. We'd definitely like to have a more interactive conversation with you at a later time if this is something that we can be of service in working with you with. With that said, as businesses begin their reentry into the new normal stemming from the COVID-19 pandemic, we continue to provide solutions to help ensure the safety, security, and wellness of our clients. Today, we're talking about temperature detection, which may be useful for your team. We've had a lot of clients contact us asking about this temperature detection technology, and we've talked to many people, and almost nobody has the exact same need and are at various stages of deploying some type of solution to deal with pre-screenings. My hope today is that we give you at least one good idea or resource for addressing the concerns that all businesses are facing now. Please just email us and we'll provide whatever we have that may help with our reentry and ongoing plans. Thank you. As we go through the next few screens, we want to be sure that we take time to be clear on what the product is and what it isn't. This is not a medical device. We're establishing a credential for each person that will be screened. The credential will be that their temperature is a range between X and Y, and if it is out of that range, they do not have a valid credential, and this will cause an event, which is then dealt with by your specific response policy. This is an emerging technology, so we are working closely with trusted vendors, fellow dealers across the country, and even reaching out and sharing best practices with competitors in order to help deliver a quality solution. Working from CDC guidance on any thermographic solution is important to keep certain things in mind. Thermal temperature monitoring solutions are not FDA cleared or approved. The solution should not be solely or primarily used to diagnose or exclude a diagnosis of COVID-19 or any other disease. Elevated body temperature should be confirmed with secondary evaluation methods, for instance, an NCIT or clinical grade contact thermometer. Users, through their experience with the solution in the particular environment of use, should determine the significance of any fever or elevated temperature based on the skin telethermographic temperature measurement. Visible thermal patterns are only intended for locating the points from which to extract the thermal measurement. This slide is how we typically start our conversation with clients, and we won't have time today to go into depth, but I wanted to share this and allow you to begin to think about the things that we would talk about. If we've learned anything in relatively short periods of time, it's that we really need to have individual conversations, virtual of course, to help determine what is the best solution for your situation. And we're doing many virtual meetings a day to this end, and I'm very pleased to say we're also starting to do those again in person. Human body temperature has a normal constant range from 97 degrees to 99 degrees. Body temperature can reflect the current health of the human body, and the temperature greater than this range is generally considered a fever. We know that one of the key symptoms of this virus is a high fever, so thermal imaging is quickly gaining attention for its ability to monitor human temperature from a distance. It is well suited for areas where temperature measurement is important. Mounted thermal imaging cameras are an efficient way to monitor temperature within large groups of people because it can be done at a distance, is contact-free, and has a fast detection speed. This saves manpower and material resources and allows for a seamless flow of people passing through. And on this screen, you'll see the different challenges that you can face when you're trying to pick up a thermal image and determine the temperature of your subject. We can monitor temperatures even when people have things that are blocking their face, as you can see in the pictures. And thanks to the face detection algorithm, you have the ability to ignore things like hot cups of coffee or tea to stay away from false positives. In the image here of a deployment at IU Health, you can clearly see them using a Blackbody device to increase accuracy. We wanted to bring up the Blackbody device because this device allows for a much higher degree of accuracy, and depending on your application, this could become very important. Much of the guidance is being very clear that you will want the accuracy provided by a device like this. We want to reduce the number of false negatives and positives as much as possible. With that said, you can deploy a solution without the Blackbody if it fits your needs. Just please be sure to be aware of the implications. Depending on the solution, we will install and calibrate this device and maintain that calibration to manufacturer specifications for you. I did want to mention that there are many things that need to be done to set the temperature devices up for success, and we will cover those more when we understand your unique application. Here are just a few items to consider. The Areas that we want to avoid deploying them would be outdoor environments or areas with direct sunlight or a big contrast in the backlighting. Any reflective surfaces, high ambient temperatures, or strong airflow can interfere with an accurate reading. We do want to avoid deploying these in areas like areas that have heaters or microwave ovens or high-powered lamps, which again could throw off our temperature measurements. Clients are facing challenging environments and concerns about how to deploy these systems effectively. We, of course, need to maintain spacing and bring people into a single file column whenever possible. But as you can see on the screen here, it is possible if you have the type of environment which would require that we provide barriers to create the right traffic flow through training and proper deployment of your employees and those being screened. It is possible to space people out along a pathway like this, leave the interior area clear of personnel until there is space in the next lane so that as they approach the camera, they can be detected in a way that meets all of CDC guidance for spacing and helps the screener keep everything organized as well. So I wanted to also mention in our office, we are using our access control system to direct everyone to only one entrance so that we don't need to deploy multiple of these types of systems. Training the screeners, employees, and anyone being screened is a very big part of a successful deployment. With that in mind, here's a typical system design. This is a design with a screening agent present, as you see by our little officer here. And you can see an actual screen capture down and to the right of what the camera is actually doing and what it's picking up. And you'll notice here that there is an analytics box which helps the camera determine whether or not it's reading a face or some other object. Note that the camera in the slide that's coming up shows a live view as an identifying feature for reference, and more about that in just a moment. I wanted to also mention, excuse me, I hit the wrong button. I also wanted to note that there is a remote screener here being demonstrated, which is again exactly how we're actually using this in our office. We have about 80 people in our office, and that is the best application for us because we have access control limiting access to our building, and then we can train each of our employees and vendors before they make it inside so they know what to expect and where to be. So in the next screen, you're actually going to see a deployment at IU Health, and it's a great article that we received. And you can see how they've turned their lobby into an effective screening environment. I found it very interesting that the person that's quoted in this article talks about, hey, I think we're really going to see this everywhere, and for us, we consider this to be a permanent installation. We were recently at a site that was a medical site, and they had been considering some type of solution like this. And right now what they're doing is handheld. And what's happening with them is it's very unorganized. It's really slowing people down as they enter the building. They really don't have anything organized. So the appearance to someone that's visiting tends to be a lot of people packed into a small space and a lot of people not understanding they need to go through the process. So they're missing some people, and they're having to have, in this client's case, they have 3 people dealing with this screening process. So you can contrast that to what you see here at IU Health, much faster, much more organized screening process. They actually provide a budget as well in this, which we thought was interesting, and they show an initial investment of $23,000, which is in line, if a bit high, given our experience for deployment that includes everything that they have set up. And also like this too, because you can see right here that they have deployed for higher accuracy a Blackbody device. And I thought it also interesting to note that they have opted to use tripods for the mounting of the camera and the Blackbody device so that they can move it throughout the facility. We have clients that have us actually using their structure or ceiling to mount the camera so they do not have to have the tripods. Just a few things to keep in mind as we go through some options that are available. As you see in the first bullet here, detection distance or range is the primary factor. How much distance do we need to consider? How many people moving through? What do we want to accomplish with our entrance given the type of entrance and the number of employees we expect to bring through at any given time? The third bullet here really talks about a secondary factor that is very important. Do we want to have a handheld or a mountable solution? We'll talk more about that in just a moment. And one of the things that we heard loud and clear from our clients is, hey, let's talk about some price so we can talk about some budgeting. And I finish, I think, with some really good information today on our webinar about that. Many people are already moving forward, are and have been moving forward with handheld solutions, which, depending on employee count and resources, may be enough for their needs. We are mainly getting feedback that the challenges specifically of having to have a screener present and in close contact with the device is a big concern for these clients. Secondly, the lack of efficiency of the device and the inability of the device to recognize things that AI can ignore in more capable cameras has them looking for better solutions. And again, back to that story, when we walked into that lobby, it was a bit of a mess. There was very poor organization. Again, they had 3 people dedicated to the process, and it did not seem like they had a very good control of people entering the space, even though they were taking some great steps to protect their people. So on the screen now, you'll see there are examples of different manufacturers and form factors that we are working with now. The reason for multiple trusted partners for us is to cover the many different deployments we are being asked to be involved in. So here you'll see a turret camera. This would be a mounted solution. People are putting this on walls, ceilings, tripods. The same is true with the bullet type thermal imaging device. There are all kinds of different mounting solutions and more on their ranges in just a moment. The handhelds are pretty familiar. You'll see all kinds of different handhelds being used out there. And then one of the newer entrants into the thermal imaging game is the tablet, or you might hear it called a kiosk device, and you may even hear it called a terminal device. And it's essentially a 7-inch screen, and it's very similar to an iPhone or an iPad being on the wall. And these are an interesting solution, which we will talk about more in just a moment. So the turret and bullet options that you see here can give you a range of 2 to 5 feet if they are the mid-range devices, meaning that people just need to get within 5 feet and they will get a read range that is presented either to a monitor or to a remote screener or both. The bullet gives you the ability to move to a long-range read range of 22 feet, which is a great improvement. And what we're seeing is when people have hundreds of people coming through at any given time, they're moving to that type of solution. Each one of these solutions has the ability to work independently from an NVR, which is a recording device, or a Blackbody device, or a local computer using the software that we will provide and configure on a remote computer. The turret and bullet can actually use onboard lights and sounds to enunciate an event, to notify high temp, and then email a user with the image and thermal read for management of the event. In a moment, I'm going to share a screen of our office because that's exactly how we're using ours in our office because of our environment and our ability to train our users. We've seen the most interest in the bullet short or long range to fit the client's needs, connected to an NVR for storage and a monitor to have a main screening station, similar to the IU image. I'm going to back up just a second and just mention that the 2 devices here are being used primarily for people that don't want to have someone stationed and have a handheld, and they don't need the speed of someone that would be well suited to use either the turret or the bullet form factor. They are okay with people stepping up and presenting themselves to the device. It's about a half second or less read time, and it does 2 things. It reads the temperature of the person, and it also determines whether or not they have a mask or both. At that point, many people are simply having someone acknowledge that this has occurred and allowing them to go into the building. Some clients are actually putting that in line with access control, as you see here on the screen, that if you do not have the right temperature and you do not have a mask, then your access control credential, card or fob, will not let you through the electronically controlled door, whether it's a magnetic lock or an electronic strike, or as you see here, some type of vestibule control. And of course, we're seeing all of these deployed in banks, schools, churches, daycares, food handling locations, really any manufacturing, any professional offices, really anyone who's not only trying to run their business to CDC guidelines, but also trying to make people feel comfortable as they show up for work or show up to shop or get the services that someone provides. Okay, at the risk of creating a technical issue on a webinar, what I'm going to do is run you through a little bit of a video to give you a feel for how the software will work and how you will see it. In a moment, what you're going to see is you're going to see people walking through a fixed mounted bullet camera. So this is a mid-range deployment, and I wanted to give you an idea of the speed of the read range. And of course, you'll notice immediately that the device said, hey, the cup of tea or coffee that's hot that he is carrying doesn't matter to me because that's not his face. So the analytic has grabbed the face, read, and determined that that's okay. And in a moment, the next person that moves through is vigorously rubbing their head to create a high temperature scenario. You'll get a feel for what happens next. Okay, so you noticed, whoops, I hit the wrong button. We'll let that run. So you notice when we get the high temperature, what happens next is that you're going to immediately see it. It's going to grab it. And then this is one of the most useful features to make it more efficient for someone who is in a screening position to deal with a high temperature. So it pops up and it gives you a message that says, this is what's occurred. And then it shows you a live image and a thermal image that are paired so that you can follow your company's policy for dealing with that high temperature scenario. Most clients are directing that person over to a simple isolation area that could be as simple as some seats well away from the entry point so that they can cool down a moment, and then they're asking them to come back through, and most of the time that is resolving issues that are seen, especially if it's a very hot day outside. All right, then I'm going to press play. The next thing that's going to come up is really something I think that might be useful for you. And I have been, oops, forgive me, I hit the wrong button. Let me do this. One of the things I think that's interesting here is the people that you're getting ready to see are not following social distancing protocol. But what I did want you to see is just how quickly the reads are happening, and imagine how much more quickly and how much more effectively a person can deal with a larger group of people moving through so that you don't have people backed up waiting on a handheld read or some other type of device. Okay, so we made it through the video playing with just a few little glitches there. Thank you for bearing with me. So you can see the solution that we've deployed now in our office. I just took some pictures of this process that we are following ourselves. And you can see on the left a picture of me being screened, and we've trained all of our employees to come in within the field of view and to make sure that they are read. And that's why the monitor in our scenario is facing the employee. Some clients are deciding to keep that monitor facing some type of an attendant, like health and fitness locations intend to have you use your normal credential to log into the gym for the day. And then if the person behind the counter sees someone has a high temperature, they're going to very professionally ask them to step off to the side so they can address that high temperature. And then, of course, they will have communicated to their base that that is possible. So you can see here that I hope you can see that there is a speaker and a light on the camera here and here that actually will alert you that, hey, you're not wearing a mask or your temperature is high, and then it would flash a light at you. In our office, our employees are trained to then move themselves to an isolation area where our HR person, Stacy, follows our internal policy for mitigating that scenario. If the high temp is triggered, you can do many different things. You can simply have it alert locally for a local screening agent, or in our case, you can send that email to Stacy, who has the app open and is watching, and she can deal with it at that point. I wanted to also note that you see these two different camera lenses on the camera. That is what is very useful in case you do not have someone who's well trained and you need to find them within your facility. Not only do you have the thermal image, but you have actually the live image. I also wanted to just give you an idea. This is a good example. This is Sean, one of our engineers. This is him pre-deploying and setting up a system where they're going to be reading quite a few people entering into a manufacturing type application, and they are going to use a Blackbody to give them the highest possible accuracy. All right, so our next to last slide that I wanted to share is one that we have certainly had a lot of folks ask about. And we wanted to try to provide something that is really something you can count on and have some good discussions internally about whether or not the value is there to deploy this type of solution. And of course, we are more than happy to talk with you about what is a good application and what we've seen in similar deployments as yours. So there's many solutions and many variations of those solutions that will affect the budget. Each client environment can create variations, so please do keep in mind that we need to talk in order to get an accurate budget for your needs. With that said, one of the top questions is, what does it cost? And if you remember the tablet or kiosk or terminal application, these fully deployed and the client being trained are about $3,500 for the initial investment for those. Some things that could change that is the type of software integration that you intend to use, and we will certainly talk to you more about that. The turrets or the bullets that are doing mid-range, which would be that 2.5 to 10 feet actually read range, those are about $7,200 per turret for the initial installation or bullet. And then for the bullet, like you saw deployed at the IU Health application, that device that can do 22 feet of read range is about $10,000. And then whether or not you need a Blackbody device could certainly be a big decision maker for you, and that is a $5,000 investment approximately for that device fully deployed. And then some clients are wanting this to be a standalone deployment that has nothing to do with their network. And in that case, they want to have a fully independent system. They are investing somewhere between $700 to $1,400 for an NVR or a recording box. It's the brains of the outfit, if you will. That gives you some other benefits. If you do require recording, if your HR needs require that, it gives you that ability. And I wanted to also mention that that type of system can also give you true facial recognition, which some clients have told us is very important for their policies, so that, for instance, someone comes to the office and they do have a high read range, they can take that image and make a note on the system that this person should not be allowed back into the building for the next 2 weeks, whatever their policy may be. If the person comes back, regardless of their temperature, the system will recognize their face and then send an alert either to the screener on staff or a remote screener so that they can handle that situation. Furthermore, that can be used for other applications. As you can imagine, in the future, if someone should not be on the site, facial recognition can be a benefit. So just want to make sure we made a note of that. At the end of our normal discussions, what we like to do is obviously have a Q&A, and we like to have clients challenge our best thinking with their best thinking, and so we would definitely take time throughout to have those types of discussions. And initially, we were really having a hard time with the installation time frame because the equipment was so hard to get because of the global demand. It's certainly the first time in my 20 some odd years of doing this full time that I have seen a global demand impact a product. So now, Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we can get our hands on the equipment, so to speak, within about a week and a half to 2 weeks now. And we can get that deployed depending on your area and the complexity of your installation within another week of that time, depending on what it is that you're trying to accomplish. So if it's something that you have a need and it's going to be something that's quick because you're trying to reach a certain date for reopening or a policy, then please reach out and let us know. The sooner the better, and we are certainly the kind of company that can ask our vendors to step up and work a little faster if necessary. And with that, I definitely wanted to thank everyone who's an existing client, and you're very much appreciated. Thank you so much for trusting us with your security. I hope that you, if you're attending this webinar today, found at least one good thing that you can take from this, and just know that we're out here doing everything that we can to keep everyone safe and healthy, and we want to be part of the recovery. So please reach out and let us know how we can help. Thank you so much.